out here, y'all, as Trump has subpoenaed Waltz, Fry, and other Minnesota officials amid immigration crackdown, y'all. Y'all know it's been going crazy in Minnesota ever since the unaliving of the good lady, Renee Good. Ever since then, it's been a lot going on, man. It looked like it's finna be a lot more going on. Shout out to everybody in the building. Make sure y'all double tapping that screen. Most definitely subscribe to the channel if you are new, as we get into all the latest and breaking information going on within this whole situation, y'all. It is wow, man. I swear to God, it's wild. I was like, wow, man. So it's DOJ, Pam Bundy down there. It's a lot of people that's involved in the Trump administration that's in Minneapolis, man. I seen somewhere where they were gearing up to send 1,500 troops to Minnesota. I don't know if they actually did it, because I did not catch that part, but I know it was most definitely being spoke about that they were going to send 1,500 troops to Minnesota, guys. Remember, Trump was trying to enact the Insurrection Act. It's a lot going on, y'all. But he most definitely has subpoenaed a lot of the higher-ups in Minnesota, guys. It's crazy, man. Breaking news, breaking news. Shout out to everybody in the building. If you in here, make sure you double tapping that screen. That's how you hit the like button. It most definitely helps out the channel. I would appreciate it very much. Make sure you subscribe if you are new. You can also click those three dots in the right-hand corner and hit that thumbs up. That's another way to hit the like button, man. Let's get into it as they hold these press briefings about what's up, Ms. Pooh Bear. Thank you for the gift about what's going on in Minnesota as we speak, guys. Check this out.
We got a bit of breaking news as we were covering this news conference and the president was speaking. It sounds like subpoenas from what we have reporting here at NBC News, subpoenas have been served at the offices of the governor of Minnesota as well as the mayor of Minneapolis. What more do we know about that?
That's right, Tom. A slew of subpoenas now coming from the Department of Justice to officials in Minnesota, state and local as well. From the Minnesota Attorney General to the office of the governor there, the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Fry, who has been very public, very front and center in this. We can pull it up on screen. You can see the list of subpoenas there, according to a document reviewed by NBC News and a person familiar with the investigation. The subpoenas, according to the DOJ.
So we have the Minnesota Attorney General. We got Hennepin County, Ramsey County, Office of Governor Tim Waltz, Office of Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry, Office of St. Paul's Mayor Kaul, however you say their name. That is crazy, y'all. This is the list of the subpoenas that the Trump team has sent out, for some of the head people in Minnesota, guys.
DOJ are that related to this idea that Minnesota public officials, according to the Trump administration, conspired to impede law enforcement during immigration operations there.
What's up,
We already
Jayla?
have a response now from the office of the Minneapolis mayor, from Mayor Fry, who's suggesting that the federal government is weaponizing its power to try to intimidate local leaders for doing their jobs, going on to say that every American should be concerned. He says we shouldn't have to live in a country where people fear that federal law enforcement will be used to play politics or crack down on local voices they disagree with. And Tom, make no mistake, this is an escalation now of the conflict here between the feds, between the Trump administration and state and local officials in the state of Minnesota and in the city of Minneapolis after the killing of Renee Good now 2 weeks ago here, the woman who was shot and killed by an ICE officer at the tail end of some operations they had been conducting in that city. You heard the president, too, interestingly, reference Good. He took a different tone on this than we have heard from his top officials over the course of the last 12 days or so, suggesting that ICE may have made a mistake generally, or that ICE can make mistakes. That is markedly different, Tom, from the more defiant and defensive tone that we had heard from people
Let's take time to double tap that screen, guys. Get the likes up. That's how you hit the like if you're on a mobile device, or you can click those three dots, hit the thumbs up, man. This is more on the subpoenas that Trump team has put out against high-ranking officials in Minnesota.
The Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. So a lot of moving pieces on the Minnesota front late today, too.
It was a notable shift, and we'll see if the White House sticks with that language or if it morphs into something else. We thank you for watching.
All right, hold on, because we ain't done. Now, let's switch gears. Let's go here exactly what it was that Trump said about these subpoenas as he gave a briefing, at the White House.
It's a lot of people. I think it's like a record. So these are accomplishments. We have a lot of accomplishments, and as you know, this is the anniversary, first anniversary, January 20th, and it's been an amazing period of time. We have a book that I'm not going to read to you, but these are the accomplishments of what we've produced. All page after page after page, individual things.
You guys make sure you're double tapping that screen. Get the likes up. Subscribe to the channel if you're new.
We've done more than any other administration has done by far in terms of military, in terms of ending wars, in terms of completing wars. Nobody's really seen very much like it. I think it's appropriate that because Minnesota is so much in the fray, and I say to my people all the time, and they're so busy doing other things, they don't say it like they should. They're apprehending murderers and drug dealers and a lot of bad people. And these are just some of the more recent ones that we have. And I can show you some of the people. Vicious, many of them murderers. These are all out of Minnesota, just Minnesota. I say, why don't you talk about that more? Because people don't know. Do you want to live with these people? International murder. These are people that are living, they're apprehended and either put in jails in their country from where they came, and the countries respect us, and so they actually put them there. In the old days, they didn't respect our country. Biden wouldn't do this because he let them all in. You know, if you didn't have open border policies of Biden, none of this, all of the things that all of the time that we spend talking about Minnesota and everything else, most of them are coming from out of the country. And it's been caused by a previous administration. Look at this, one after one.
These are people that ISIS picked up, guys.
Boy,
out of Minnesota.
Characters. These are all criminal, illegal aliens that, in many cases, they're murderers, they're drug lords, drug dealers. They're the mentally insane. There's some of them who are brutal killers. They're mentally insane. They're killers, but they're insane. These are just in Minnesota. In California, it's worse. In other states, it's worse. No, Minnesota, the crime is incredible. The financial crimes are incredible. And the problem is because of the agitators and insurrectionists, whatever you want, troublemakers, but they're paid agitators and insurrectionists. Nobody talks about the fact that $19 billion at a minimum is missing in Minnesota, given to a large degree by Somalians. They've taken it. Somalians, can you imagine? And they don't do it. A lot of very low IQ people, they don't do it. Other people work it out, and they get them money, and they go out and buy Mercedes-Benzes, and they come from here, they have no money. They never had money. They never had a life. They never had a government. They never had a country, because there's basically no country. Somalia is not even a country. They don't have anything that resembles a country. And if it is a country, it's considered just about the worst in the world. They come here and they become rich, and they don't have a job. I was told that Ilhan Omar is worth $30 million. She never had a job. She's a crooked congressman. So here's another one. And I have, oh, by the way, we just took out, these are all what ICE is doing. And it's a dangerous job. These are rough people. Weapons. This one here is very bad. I'm going through this because I think we have plenty of time.
He's putting up pictures of criminals in Minnesota, guys.
This beautiful place in Switzerland, where we'll be, I'm sure I'm very happily awaited for. In Switzerland, they don't know about this. They don't have this problem. They have other problems, but they don't have this problem. Look, killed somebody. And these are rough people. These are not. This was all allowed into our country through open borders. The dumbest policies, you know, men and women's sports is dumb. But to me, having an open border for the world to come in, drug dealers and prisoners. Venezuela, as an example, opened their prisons into the United States. That's why one of the reasons I felt so strongly against Venezuela. Now I'm loving Venezuela. They've been working with us so well. It's been so nice. And an unbelievably nice woman also did a very incredible thing, as you know, a few days ago. We're talking to her, and maybe we can get her involved in some way. I'd love to be able to do that. Maria, maybe we can do that. But we're dealing with the people and the president and all of the people in Venezuela, and we've been
Make sure you guys are
Oil
double
companies
tapping that
getting ready
screen
to
or
make
clicking those
massive
three dots, hitting that
investments. They have
thumbs
more
up, guys.
oil than
As
even
we
Saudi
talk,
Arabia.
as Trump gets into
There
these
you go.
subpoenas for the
These are real. These are rough water. This is all Minnesota, every one of them. This is one state out of many. And these people are, let's see, yeah, these are all, so far, people that came from outside of the country. They were allowed in by Sleepy Joe Biden, Crooked Joe Biden, whichever you like. You can call him whatever you like. They're both right. He's sleepy and he's crooked. He was the worst president we've ever had.
shots fired.
And we've had some bad ones, too. I can tell you all you have to do is look at trade. You're not getting bored with this, right? I hope you don't. But these are people that you have to see. Strong-arm rape, aggravated assault with a weapon, and many other crimes. Gang member, known as one of the toughest people around. These are tough people. So this is what the people are trying to protect, because all ICE wants to do is get them out of our country, bring them to prisons and jails and mental institutions from where they came. That's all they want to do. They're patriots, and they have to be abused by guys like Don Lemon, who's a loser, lightweight. I saw him the way he walked in that church. It was terrible. I have such respect for that pastor. He was so calm. He was so nice. He was just accosted. What they did in that church was horrible yesterday. Look at it. 24 convictions. 24 times convicted. They're not charges. These are convictions. So he comes from outside the country. Do you think he's going to be good here? He's convicted 24 times. He's going to be good here, right? It doesn't work that way. It's a man murder. It's one of many. One of many. All they want to do is get him out. They want to take him out of our country. And we're met with paid agitators and insurrectionists, troublemakers. They're paid. You know, when the woman was shot, I felt terribly about that. And I understand both sides of it. But when she was shot, there was another woman that was screaming shame, 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 right? You saw it so loud. It was like a professional opera singer. She was so loud and so professional. She wasn't a woman that was hurt, like, oh, my heart's injured. She was a professional. She's shame, shame. She's screaming shame, shame. I said, that's not a normal person. That's a professional. These are professional agitators and professional people that want to see our country.
Oh, wow. She was a professional.
That's not happening because we have the hottest country anywhere
she was
in the
saying
world.
shame, shame. She just watched her friend get unalive. Come on, Trump.
All top of the line criminals. They're not going to be good. They're not going to be well behaved here. I could do thousands. We had over 3,000 in the last fairly short while. Just in Minnesota. What's the number, Carol?
10,000.
10,000.
10,000 criminals arrested in Minnesota alone.
10,000 criminals. And these are serious criminals. Now, how can a place with 10,000 criminals, how can you have a state? And yet they're fighting us. Yeah, I like that guy. He keeps nodding to me. You agree with me, I guess. I like him. I don't know who he is, but I like him. He keeps nodding. He says, you're right. He's obviously a little on the right side, maybe. Look. These are rough ones. So this, we just took this off a stack. We have many stacks like this. Like, I could go 30 times what I'm showing you now. Relations with Hezbollah, that's nice. Why do we allow them in our country? I'm just looking at these charges. It's just really incredible.
This is Trump on Minnesota,
murders,
guys.
many murders. People that murdered. So what ICE does, and Border Patrol is incredible, too. I mean, Paul Perez and that group is incredible. Mostly Hispanic, by the way. They're like 60% Hispanic. You know, they talk about Hispanic. They're mostly Hispanic, right? And they're unbelievable people. And then they say, oh, we discriminate against. I love Hispanic. They are unbelievable. Entrepreneurial. They have everything. I did great. I did the highest. Nobody ever got
Hey, Money Mo.
numbers like I got from the standpoint of being a Republican. But even if you look at Texas, I won the entire border along Texas, between Texas and Mexico. It never happened before. Nobody's ever done that before. I did it. As a Republican, I did it. I love the Hispanic. And they accuse us of all sorts of things. 60% of the people we're talking about, they're the best people we have, and they're Hispanic. The Border Patrol is largely Hispanic. ICE is largely Hispanic. They're unbelievable people. I don't know how they can take the abuse. They're taking rough people like this, like all of them. We have 10,000 at least. I could have done 10,000 of them. You're lucky I only did like 100. And this isn't even the worst of the group. They have murderers. They have some people we can't use their picture for legal reasons, but they're up for murder in their own country. And we jeopardize their case. When we send them back and we coordinate with other countries. A tremendous amount of work. All allowed in here by an open border policy of the worst president in the history of our country. A man that didn't win the election, by the way, it's a rigged election. Everybody knows that now. And by the way, numbers are coming out that show it even more plainly. We caught him. So I just want you to know that it's a terrible thing. Here's the book on accomplishments. And this is something, I'm glad my finger wasn't in that sucker. They could have done some damage, but you know what? I wouldn't have shown the pain. I would have gone back. What, did you hear that? That was nasty. But I would not have shown the pain. I would have acted like nothing happened as my finger fell off. That was nasty. I think somebody did that. It was him. It was my man. How were you? You didn't do it. I know you did. I know you didn't. So, but here's the book. These are all things we have. I'm going to read a few of the samples, but look at this. These are all, each line is something that we did. Nobody did that before. And it's big stuff, too. Look, we have the hottest country in the world. So, I will read you a few. We ended Biden's stagflation. We were in stagflation. That's a disaster. That's far worse than inflation. As you know, he had the biggest inflation in the history of our country. They say 48 years. Pick your choice. But they had the biggest inflation in the history of our country. We have it right down to a normal number now. We're going to get it even a little bit lower. Created super high. What we've done with growth is incredible. We created super high economic growth. And America is booming. It's booming. There are thousands of businesses right now that are being built.
I really want to see
many of the biggest.
I really just want to hear what pertains to Minnesota.
Countries in the world are being built right in our country. They're not going to other countries. They're leaving other countries. Fourth quarter GDP is on track to pass.
Let's go here.
They should be able to settle those wars. They don't. I believe you got to let the UN continue because the potential is so great.
And I wonder you invited Lula from Brazil to be part of the Board of Peace.
I did.
What role do you expect him to play, especially
A big role. I like him.
Venezuela?
Yeah,
and another one, because
Are you from Brazil?
Yes. The EU and Mercosur just signed a trade agreement this weekend, which is going to be the biggest trade zone, free zone in the world. Right. At the moment, you are talking a lot about tariffs. What is your reaction to that? So, two questions, Lula.
Well, look, I just think this. I think we have trade like we've never had before. We're doing better in trade than we ever have before. We're not being ripped off by every country in the world like we were before. We're doing numbers that nobody's ever thought possible. We're the richest we ever were. It's because of tariffs and the proper use of tariffs. And we're also the most secure. As an example, Iceland, without tariffs, they wouldn't even be talking to us about it. So we'll see what happens. I think it's going to work out quite well. Yeah, right behind.
Thank you, Mr. President. How would you characterize your relationship with Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer right now? And have you spoken to them since your Truth Social post last
No, I haven't, but I think I get along very well with them. I mean, they always treat me well. They get a little bit rough when they're, when I'm not around. But when I'm around, they treat me very nicely. And, I like both of them. They're both liberal. They've got to straighten out their countries. You can't, London is having a lot of problems. And if you look at Paris, got a lot of problems.
I want to see this. Hold on real quick. Let's go here. Because I gotta get to where I'm trying to be, man. I'm trying to see what's going on with this Minnesota and these subpoenas. Hold up. Let's go here.
Whole thing is absolutely.
Fry's Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry is expanding. The New York Times reports federal prosecutors have issued subpoenas to at least 5 Democratic officials in Minnesota beyond Walz and Frey. 2 people familiar with the matter tell the New York Times that prosecutors are seeking documents from the mayor of St. Paul, Kali Hare, the state attorney general, Keith Ellison, and Mary Moriarty, the Hennepin County attorney. Joining us, MS Now Justice and Intelligence reporter Ken Galanian and former Assistant Chief Counsel for ICE, Veronica Cardenas. This is an extraordinary step, Ken. Explain to me the justification.
The whole thing is absolutely extraordinary, Katie. The theory of this federal investigation, as I understand it from some reporting, is they're looking at whether these local officials have violated a statute that makes it a crime to conspire to...
Hey, guys, can we take time to get the likes over 100? Double tap that screen. If you're on a mobile device, or click those 3 dots, hit that thumbs up. It helps out the channel. I wouldn't keep asking. Let's get those likes up, guys. Double tap that screen if you're on a mobile device, or click the 3 dots, hit the thumbs up. It helps out the channel, man. I'm trying to bring y'all up to speed on these subpoenas that were put out against top representatives in Minnesota, guys.
Struck federal officers in the course of their duty. But what we're talking about here is First Amendment protected activity by public officials, elected officials in the state of Minnesota and by various cities, essentially advising their citizens on how to fulfill their civil rights and how to behave if they're confronted by ICE agents, and denouncing what they see as an invasion of their community. Before we got on the air, I was watching video of a news conference by a local Minnesota police chief who said that even members of his own department, people of color entirely, he said, are being pulled over by masked ICE agents and who are demanding proof of citizenship, and only when they present their police ID are they allowed to go. These were men with guns drawn. This is happening every day around the country, but particularly in Minnesota, and these local officials are trying to put a stop to it. So we have an incredible clash here between the federal government, the awesome power of the Justice Department and the federal government, and local elected officials in a way that we haven't seen ever in the history of this country, Katie.
But it's also Mary Moriarty and the AG Keith Ellison. And what have they done? I mean, they've announced investigations, but they've also been very careful in how they've framed all of this. I mean, they've asked the public for help. They've asked for more evidence, for more information. It's not just the governor and the mayor here, the mayors of both towns, Minneapolis and St. Paul. It's now the DA and the AG taking it to that step. I mean, isn't that even one step further than the public officials?
Yeah, well, the DOJ is seeking evidence that the actions of these people were designed to obstruct,
which is Pam Bundy, them guys,
immigration enforcement. But of course, the thing to remember here is that this may never reach charges. let alone a trial. But it has an effect of chilling and intimidating people. The awesome power of the federal government, grand jury subpoenas landing on people's offices. We don't even know the extent to which career FBI agents and career prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office are even engaging in this. It doesn't take a lot to send out some subpoenas. And that's an interesting question, is who actually at the Department of Justice is putting their names on an inquiry like this? And is it going to go anywhere, or is it just an intimidation tactic?
Let me show you what Governor Tim Walz said about this. He said 2 days ago, it was Alyssa Slotkin. Last week, it was Jerome Powell. Before that, Mark Kelly. Weaponizing the justice system and threatening political opponents is a dangerous authoritarian tactic. The only person not being investigated for the shooting of Renee Good is the federal agent who shot her. Here's Mayor Jacob Fry saying this. This is an obvious attempt to intimidate me for standing up for Minneapolis, local law enforcement, and residents against the chaos and danger this administration has brought to our city.
So they're speaking out, guys.
I will not be intimidated. My focus remains where it has always been, keeping our city safe. Veronica, the president took to the podium in the White House today, and the first thing he started talking about after he brandished his book of accomplishments, and that's what it was called, his book of accomplishments over the past year, was to start talking about Minneapolis. And he showed up a bunch of mugshots that he said were violent criminals that were arrested in Minneapolis. We can't confirm anything that the president said. What does it say to you, though, that the president of the United States came to the podium today to try to reframe the discussion on Minneapolis, to try to get ahead of it, and to try to claim that what's going on there is to protect American citizens from these very violent criminals?
It seems to me like he sees the way that the American public is viewing this. This is going to be a stain on our democracy, the way that he's treating non-citizens and citizens alike. And what he's doing is not novel, right? If it's criminals that he's going after, this is not novel. DHS has been doing this. When I was an assistant chief counsel, we did this. We did go after criminals with targeted investigations. What he is doing now,
we're gonna hear from everybody. Just chill out. We got the DOJ coming up next with Pam Bundy.
The U.S. citizen in his house pulled out without a warrant when he was a citizen all along. And these cases are not the exception anymore. They've become the norm.
Yeah, no, it's a man who was removed from his home in his underwear. An American citizen removed from his home in his underwear. You just heard Ken said talking about the police source that he was saying where the Ken, repeat again what you were saying about police officers being pulled over by ICE.
A local police chief had a news
more
conference
likes, guys.
today,
Double
and
tap that
said that
screen.
he's
man.
getting complaints from all over the community, including from his own officers, people of color, who are getting pulled over by masked ICE agents, guns drawn, demanding to see proof of citizenship, which of course no one has. You have a driver's license, that's not proof of citizenship. And then only when the officer shows their police ID, the ICE agents wordlessly walk away, as the police chief explained it.
So Veronica, if they wanted to take legal action against the administration for that, could they?
They could, because the stop, the questioning has to be based on either reasonable suspicion and in a stop, arrest, probable cause. So in these cases, what we're seeing is that because ICE has enjoyed, or DHS has enjoyed, warrantless arrests for so long, and the Supreme Court has really lowered the standard of what reasonable suspicion is. It can be based on the way a person looks. We've heard DHS state it's because someone spoke in an accent. It can be because they are standing by a Home Depot or maybe a bus stop, and so they think those are characteristics of people who do not have status. But at the same time, they do not have jurisdiction over citizens. So yes, if they are being unlawfully arrested, unlawfully detained, there are actions that they can take against DHS. But it is very difficult.
You know, we were talking a moment ago about the American citizen who was taken from his home by ICE in his underwear. His name is Scott Tao. He was interviewed about it. Let's listen to what he said.
Suddenly they just handcuffed me. They didn't ask for my ID or anything until after they handcuffed me, and then they asked me, do I have my ID? I go, yeah, it's in the room. And then my daughter-in-law...
This was the man that was arrested by ICE in his underwear. You know, I'm just saying, they gave him an interview. It's hard to understand him, so I'm going to let the subtitles go.
Try to get my ID, but they don't want to see it no more. Yeah, they just took me out there with no clothes on and then just cover with my grandson's blanket.
So a federal judge has gotten involved here and said that ICE has to, respect protesters. It can't just willy-nilly start pepper spraying people. But what about the forcibly going into somebody's home and dragging them out? Has that been addressed?
I don't think that has specifically been addressed. I think that whatever side of the aisle you're on, at the very least, we should, accept that the Fourth Amendment protects unreasonable searches and seizures. Unless there's a warrant, there's no reason why any law enforcement official should be going into a home. There's a few exceptions. None of them are present here. And so this is one of those cases where it kind of
doesn't really brought out in his underwear,
to justify that unlawful entry. That unlawful entry into the home happened. So there should be a recourse there. And the issue too with these cases is that Americans are being treated the same way or even worse than people who've committed violent crimes. Like we heard from testimony from arrests happening in Minneapolis, a woman who was a U.S. citizen stated that she was chained by the legs, chained by the arms to her waist, denied water, put in a cell for hours until DHS could verify her citizenship. And so this isn't just about, breaking and entering into somebody's home to unlawfully arrest them, but then all the treatment that comes after that.
All right, Veronica Cardenas, Kendallanian, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, so let's hear from Pam Bundy and the other people. No, this is Twin Cities law enforcement on their ICE concerns, guys, and then we'll get to the DOJ in a second. Let's go.
Determine if they are here legally. As this went on over the past 2 weeks, we started hearing from our police officers the same complaints as they fell victim to this while off duty.
This is what Minnesota has to say.
Every one of these individuals is a person of color who has had this happen to them. In Brooklyn Park, one particular officer that shared her story with me was stopped as she passed ICE going down the roadway.
Now, this is about the police officers that have been pulled over by ICE. While they're doing their job, they are off duty. They have been pulled over by ICE, and the only way that they are getting out of it is by showing their badges and credentials, and then ICE just seamlessly walks away. That's what they were just talking about. This is what the police officer right here is touching on from Minnesota, guys. I told y'all this mass deportation situation was going to be a bad deal. Now look what has come.
When they boxed her in, they demanded her paperwork, of which she's a U.S. citizen and clearly would not have any paperwork.
Let's get those likes up, guys. Double tap that screen.
And the way she was being treated, she pulled out her phone in an attempt to record the incident. The phone was knocked out of her hands, prevented her from recording it. The officer had their guns drawn during this interaction. And after the officer became so concerned, they were forced to identify themselves as a Brooklyn Park police officer in hopes of slowing the incident and de-escalating the incident down. The agents then immediately left after hearing this, making no other comments, no other apologies, just got in their vehicles and left. I wish I could tell you that this was an isolated incident. In fact, many of the chiefs standing behind me have similar incidents with their off-duty officers. This isn't just important because it happened to off-duty police officers, but what it did do is we know that our officers know what the Constitution is, they know what right and wrong is, and they know when people are being targeted, and that's what they were. If it is happening to our officers, it pains me to think of how many of our community members are falling victim to this every day. It has to stop. This behavior erodes the trust that these police chiefs have worked tirelessly for the last 5 years and theoretically the last 60 years to stop this exact behavior from happening. Now, I want to be really clear. I've called lots of other ICE agents and HSI agents and have talked to a lot of individuals about this. This is not widespread. This is a small group of agents within the surge in the metro area that are performing or acting this way. As a matter of fact, as rumors of this had spread, I've received phone calls from ICE agents and HSI agents indicating this is not how they act, this is not what they do. Regardless, we're calling to action that we have more supervision over the surge, that this type of civil rights violations have to stop. With that, I'll turn it over to Chief Henry of the St. Paul Police Department.
This is the Minnesota.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so for you who are just now coming in, I showed them a video basically speaking about police officers in Minnesota who are off duty being pulled over and having to show their credentials in order to get out of what ICE has going on. They've been pulled over by ICE agents. They have to show their credentials, and then ICE seemingly walks away, saying that it has been mostly officers of color that have been put in harm's way with this situation. Thank you, Tanisha, that have been basically stopped by ICE or whatever in Minnesota. There's 5 subpoenas that have been sent out to the leaders of Minnesota. Yeah, man, it's a lot going on. This is basically Minnesota's police officers basically speaking about what they have endured at the hands of ICE themselves.
For being here. Again, my name is Axel Henry. I'm the police chief for the City of St. Paul Police Department. I want to echo the sentiments that were just said and share with you that we've had...
Let's make sure we take time to double tap that screen. That's one way to hit the like button, or click the 3 dots, hit that thumbs up, and most definitely, y'all, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Let's get the likes up for sure. Double tap that screen if you're on a mobile device, or click those 3 dots, hit that thumbs up, and remember to subscribe to the channel if you're new.
Employees for our city that have experienced some of the same things. Thankfully, not with firearms drawn, but traffic stops that were clearly outside the bounds of what federal agents are allowed to do. We recognize by standing here today that some might say, you're only speaking up because this is happening to the cops. Others will say that we're speaking out against ICE, and that means we want rapists on the street. Neither of those things are true. We want to find some common ground. Law enforcement has more authority than a general citizen. That means we have more responsibility in how we behave. We have to find common ground here, and we have to figure out a way that these processes, which are clearly failing if American citizens are being grabbed or stopped or seized, this can't happen. We have to make sure that everyone's civil rights are intact. I truly want to believe that there isn't anybody on either side of the political aisle that thinks that people's civil rights aren't important. They have to be the corner.
So now we have police officers in Minnesota speaking out against ICE, guys. It's not just regular people, the civilians anymore, the citizens. Now the police department is speaking out against ICE.
Stone of everything we do. Yesterday, our country honored Dr. Martin Luther King, and I was struck by the fact, and I'm paraphrasing, but he once said, we must learn to live together as brothers, or we will perish together as fools. We can't be foolish. We can't be those fools. So we are asking that we come together and figure out a way for this state and this country to resolve these things before things get any worse. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Dewana Witt, Sheriff of Hennepin County. Just yesterday, our nation honored the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Challenged us to at least remember the history, not only to remember the history, but also live in its lessons. The theme of this year's MLK breakfast, make a career of humanity. And that is what myself and others are trying to do. We're trying to make sure that humanity remains in the noble profession of policing. As I know what it feels like to be stereotyped, judged, and profiled, I know firsthand what it means to be seen before being understood. Our nation, and particularly our agencies and states, have worked hard to confront the wrongs of the past. The work that has never been perfect, and is still progress in the making. We know that we have a lot more to do, but there has been real progress, and it's very important that we do not lose sight of that. But today, unfortunately, we are seeing that progress erode. I am seeing and hearing about people in Hennepin County stopped, questioned, and harassed solely because of the color of their skin, solely being the operative word here. This is not okay now, and it's never been okay. And now, that same discrimination is also spilling into the law enforcement community. Dr. King reminded us that the time is always right to do the right thing. And for those of you in position of leadership, now is not the time to be quiet. When we have concrete examples of profiling, we need to do the right thing. We cannot let people in our communities think that our local law enforcement leadership is okay with the actions that we simply know are not just only wrong, but illegal. We can't just say this is a noble profession and not treat it as such. So what does it mean to be noble? It means someone admired for high moral character, showing qualities like honesty, courage, generosity, honor, and often acting in unselflessness and integrity. Integrity, one of the pillars of this profession. 5 years ago, our city, specifically Minneapolis and Hennepin County, became ground zero for civil unrest. Since that time, local law enforcement has been doing the hard, necessary work to rebuild trust within our communities. Rebuilding a community and an environment where people should feel safe. Rebuilding our law enforcement agencies with the people who honor the humanity that we want in our communities. You see, trust isn't just an abstract idea. Trust means victims of violence feel safe, calling 911. Trust means witnesses coming forward, crimes getting reported. Trust means that communities welcome law enforcement as partners in their community. You see, we just don't want to be a part of our community. We want to be partnered with our communities. And what's going on now is stifling that progress. And on a very basic level, trust means parents are not afraid to let their children go to school or church. Business owners are able to open and thrive off of their hard work of being business owners. The trust is fragile right now, and it is essential. It is an essential element to public safety. Today, that trust is being damaged, broken, by the questionable and sometimes unethical actions of some federal agents, particularly in these last recent weeks. I want to be clear that I am not saying all federal agents, as all of us know that we have become victim. If somebody or one person in law enforcement does something wrong, we all pay the cost. We cannot afford to be stereotyping or generalizing anyone. Our communities have less trust in all law enforcement when this happens, not just the federal agents, but our local law enforcement, and we're here to stay. Those harmful action causes a ripple effect through all of our professions and through all of our agencies. What I want to assure you is we are here because we all believe that our jobs are to be done professionally, lawfully, and obviously treating people with dignity and respect. Not just marginalized communities, but every single person who calls Minnesota home. This moment is the time to do what's right. We demand more from our federal government, more professionalism, more accountability, more humanity. We demand lawful policing that respects human dignity. We should not be at a point in this profession or any profession where you have to teach people how to treat people. This is the same demand we have for our own public safety professionals who serve, live, raise their own children in our communities every day. I can tell you at the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, our deputies will continue to serve and always have professionally, lawfully, and with the respect of every person's humanity, as I'm sure all of these agencies that are represented here today are also doing. And with that, we will all continue to show up, even though times are hard, even though our law enforcement is exhausted, They're being challenged. They're having to go home and face their own families and answer these questions. We are lucky to have men and women in this profession that continue to show up despite the adversity. So we want to thank you for having us here today. And at this time, we'll take questions. And yes, sorry.
Can you talk about kind of the emotional distance there may be between wanting to put criminals away and seeing the constitutional violation and the racial profiling that is part of this mass operation here with that as the same goal?
Good morning. My name is Imran Ali. I am R-A-N-A-L-I. I'm an attorney here in Minnesota. Work a lot with law enforcement from corner to corner. I think it is. I mean, that is exactly what it is. That's a very difficult, issue that's before us. But the reality still remains is that the Constitution applies to everyone, and we have, and I think it's echoed, with the speakers that we've had today. We have federal ICE officers that are in their line of duty, right? They have to do what they do, right? I mean, they're ordered to do so, and they're carrying out those lawful efforts. And what we see, though, is we see people that are obstructing in that. As a lawyer, that's still a violation of the law. What we can do is we can talk about the tactics and the emotion that's there, and there's a place for that, and that place is to be discussed a lot, and also in the courtroom. And so, to give pause that what's happening here.
It's crazy, guys, when you got law enforcement stepping up to speak out against ICE, guys. This is the Minneapolis Police Department basically saying that some of these ICE agents are out of control, guys. This is crazy.
Our mechanisms in place. There are lawsuits that we all know about. We've seen them almost every day. Something's going out. Those will play out in the court. But what can't happen, what cannot happen, is video after video of our local law enforcement officers being yelled at and threatened to by the public when they're simply there to work on behalf of the community. And I've heard from dozens and dozens of officers, and I've seen those videos. That can't happen. And that's what is increasing this temperature. It's the rhetoric and what we're seeing.
And we are just listening in live there to Twin Cities Police speaking on federal agents, as we do know that there are.
Do I have? None other than agents that I've talked to and leadership in certain groups of teams have made it clear that this is unacceptable behavior, that they've never been told this is okay. In fact, that they know it's not okay. They're held accountable to a higher standard, which makes me believe that what I fundamentally believe that this is a small group of individuals performing this. And I will be honest, this really to me started 2 weeks ago, which feels like was the last surge of Border Patrol when they arrived, is when we started seeing this really change of behavior where it's street level jump outs or traffic stops, which the federal government is not allowed to do traffic stops and tell people that they're stopping them for speeding, which is what we're seeing. That's not allowed. They are not able to do that. They need to have reasonable suspicion that somebody is here illegally for them to stop them, whether on the street or the other stop them in a vehicle. So.
What is a small group? Are you talking about dozens of agents, a handful of agents?
The question is, what is a small group? I absolutely have no idea. This is far outside of my purview as a local police chief. But what I do know is it's really impacting my community, what my community does and how they feel. And it's impacting our brand as police officers, our brand of how hard we work to build trust, to police in a way that builds legitimacy in what we do. And when people armed with rifles that have just police across their vest get out and act a certain way, of course, our public thinks that's us. Many agencies that you've probably seen, and many of them are behind me, have had to put out pamphlets showing what a Brooklyn Park police officer looks like and what an ICE agent looks like, to make sure that we tell community they are different. Those are not Brooklyn Park officers or St. Paul officers or Brooklyn Center officers. Those are ICE agents. To answer your question specifically, I have no idea what groups or who it is or how many, but I know it is a small portion of the whole.
One more follow-up. What message do you think it sends to the public in view of police chief who had decades of law enforcement experience
What message does it send to the public when you are having a hard time getting answers from the Department of Homeland Security?
Yeah, the question is, what message does it send to the community if I, as a police chief, have a hard time getting answers? How does that leave the community for them to get answers? I think it makes them feel lost. It makes them feel concerned. It makes them feel fearful. And that's why we're here today.
Chief, they're getting these complaints. I'm wondering, is there anything that your agencies are you investigating these complaints that essentially for anybody else is bringing up these concerns about? Are you investigating them? Do you have any jurisdiction to investigate these complaints?
So we're getting complaints. Jurisdiction to investigate them answers. Yeah. The question is about jurisdiction, and when we get those complaints, what do we do with those? Again, really difficult because we have, the federal government, and we also have on the state side of it as well. Obviously, I know that any law enforcement department in Minnesota is going to take any complaint that they get, but what sort of teeth do they have? What sort of enforcement do they have under the law? That is different. Again, it's the big issue here is it seems if people are that rhetoric is just passing like this. Everybody's passing, and then they're saying things, and they're not getting it.
There's a lot going on in Minnesota, guys.
But it's clear that those avenues that can be utilized for the United States citizens that feel that something is happening, we've seen those lawsuits, and those lawsuits are appropriate, and the courtroom where those are discussed, that's appropriate as well. But as far as the mechanism for us to investigate those on a state side, it's just not there.
We'll take a couple more questions.
Derek James from WCCO and CBS News Minnesota. It seems to me there's a patchwork of federal agents from different agencies all on the ground.
Well, we have spoken to some leadership both locally with their supervisors, but also there's been a series, and just as recently as this morning, and I think there's actually another one scheduled for this afternoon, where higher up elected officials are meeting with law enforcement leaders from all over the state. As you can imagine, some jurisdictions are a lot smaller than others, but we're pulling that together to get that combined message. What we're trying to get out there is that this isn't just a one-off. This isn't something that's being experienced in the way that maybe it's being described all the time on the news. That these are very specific complaints that are happening literally everywhere in our state. And so we're trying to gather that as a combined voice, and we're really trying to make it clear. We understand that there is a feeling right now that if you stand up and say something, there might be a retaliation against you. None of us want that. None of us are suggesting that there isn't a legitimate lawful authority to operate here as federal agents. But we are trying to come together to say, can we please find a pathway forward? Can we find a way to make sure that we can do these things without scaring the hell out of our community members and freaking everyone out? People are afraid right now, and I get it. We watch the news and we see very, very angry groups of people out protesting. But the people that we're dealing with as police chiefs are the people that are scared to death, that are afraid to go outside, not because their status is in question, but because they're hearing and they're seeing that they know people that are getting stopped by the way that they looked, and they don't want to take that risk.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All right, so we heard from the Minnesota police guys who are basically standing up against ICE, man. It's crazy when you have your local law enforcement, telling you that some things are wrong with what's going on. All right, so let's move forward. We have, I think this is Pam Bundy. No, this is okay, Bundy arrives. Hold on, let me make sure. Hold on, what I'm getting to. Hold up. And make sure. Give me a second. Okay, let's go here. With the subpoenas, guys. Remember, this live is about the subpoenas that have basically been put out for high-ranking people in charge in Minnesota, guys. We got Pam Bundy and her team arriving in Minnesota basically to enforce these subpoenas, or as these subpoenas are put out. Check this out.
Immigration Enforcement Obstruction investigation. I wanted to share this live look with you of Minneapolis and share a little bit more on this breaking news as we continue to follow it. Federal prosecutors have served 6 grand jury subpoenas to Minnesota officials as part of an investigation into whether they obstructed or impeded federal law enforcement during an immigration operation in Minneapolis, St. Paul, that area. That's according to a person familiar with this matter. The subpoenas, which seek records, were sent to the offices of Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry, St. Paul Mayor Herr, and officials in Ramsey and Hennepin counties. Now, that person who spoke to the Associated Press was not authorized to publicly discuss the ongoing investigation and spoke to the AP on the condition of anonymity. The subpoenas are related to an investigation into whether Minnesota officials obstructed federal immigration enforcement through public statements they made. That's according to 2 people familiar with that matter. They said then it was focused on the potential violation of a conspiracy statute.
Can we get the likes up, guys? Double tap that screen if you have not.
A bullying tactic.
Let's get the likes over 200, guys. Double tap that screen if you have not, if you're on a mobile device, or you can click the 3 dots in the right-hand corner and hit the thumbs up. Those are 2 ways to hit that like button, guys. Let's get the likes up. Shout out to everybody that's viewing. We most definitely taking a look at these subpoenas that have been issued by Trump and his administration for high-ranking officials in Minnesota
to quell political opposition. And this is the reaction from Mayor Jacob Fry saying, in Minneapolis, we won't be afraid. We know the difference between right and wrong. And as mayor, I'll continue to do the job I was elected to do, keeping our community safe and standing up for our values.
Man.
We're also getting reaction from Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. This is the lengthy statement that he shared saying, Mr. President, Minnesota invites you to see our values in action. Come see how communities from all walks of life are working together and how the spirit of this state refuses to be defined by division or fear. I invite you to join me and others in our community to help restore calm and order and reaffirm that true public safety comes from shared purpose, trust, and respect. But let me be absolutely clear. The state of Minnesota will not be drawn into political theater. This Justice Department investigation, sparked by calls for accountability in the face of violence, chaos, and the killing of Renee Good, does not seek justice. It is a partisan distraction. Minnesotans are more concerned with safety and peace rather than the baseless legal tactics aimed at intimidating public servants standing shoulder to shoulder with their community. Meantime, we do see that this event is set to get underway with the Department of Homeland Security. Let's listen in.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Greg Bovino. I'm the Commander at Large for Customs and Border Protection Assets here in the great city of Minneapolis. I'm here to talk with you today about interior enforcement, border security, and making our communities and our nation a safer place. I'm joined by my colleague, Executive Associate Director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Mr. Marcos Charles. Now, folks, let me be clear from the start that public safety in Minneapolis is not negotiable. When violent criminals exploit gaps in enforcement, gaps at that state and local level most especially, federal law enforcement has a responsibility to act. That is why we are here, and that is what this operation is about.
All right, so this kind of goes to the police officers that we just watched, saying that some of ICE agents are overstepping their basic boundaries, guys, when it comes to who's policing in Minnesota, man. Double tap that screen, get the likes up, man. Let's get the likes over 200, guys. You know what I'm saying? Most definitely subscribe to the channel if you're new.
Our operations are lawful, they're targeted, and they're focused on individuals who pose a serious threat to this community. They are not random. and they are not political. They are about removing criminals who are actively harming Minneapolis neighborhoods. For too long, residents have been told that enforcing our nation's immigration laws undermines public safety. In reality, the opposite is true. When the law is not enforced, violent offenders remain free. Criminal networks expand, and the community pays the price. Our neighbors, our citizens, our friends pay the price. Rather than confront that reality of which I've just spoken, leaders like Tim Walz or Mayor Fry have relied on heated rhetoric and accusations that distract from the facts. The facts are that federal agents are arresting murderers, rapists, child predators, cartel-connected criminals, and other individuals who pose a real danger to the people of Minneapolis. As these operations began and since, there have been constant attempts to interfere with lawful enforcement of our nation's Title VIII immigration laws here in Minneapolis. Officers have been violently and aggressively assaulted, objects have been thrown, and vehicles damaged. Despite that violence, enforcement has continued unabated. Our officers remain professional, focused, courteous, and committed to the mission. That mission, again, being Title VIII immigration enforcement. This effort reflects a coordinated federal approach. Agencies are working together under Title VIII authorities. Agencies like the United States Border Patrol, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and many other allied law enforcement agencies, FBI, DEA, ATF, and many others have came together under this operation, under this umbrella. We share intelligence and execute operations in a unified manner. That coordination is essential to effective enforcement and public safety. Since the start of this operation, we have arrested some of the most dangerous criminal offenders operating in Minnesota. In the entire state of Minnesota, we have arrested some of the most violent criminal offenders right here in this city. These are not minor violators or minor garden variety criminals. These are repeat offenders with serious criminal histories. Now, folks, before I came here today, I printed out a few individuals that I'd like to share with you.
Oh my God, he acting like Trump. He printing out pictures. Trump just showed us a bunch of pictures. Now you want to show us some pictures.
That were arrested since yesterday. These 3 individuals were arrested just since yesterday. Keep in mind now, these individuals were walking the streets of Minneapolis with impunity as of yesterday. We've got Hovai Kumaye, a criminal illegal alien from Laos, a registered sex offender convicted of sex offense against a child, including fondling and failure to register as a sex offender. This individual was walking the streets of Minneapolis just yesterday. This individual right here. It's very interesting that I haven't seen this individual or many others like him reported on very much by the local news media or the state news media. That's interesting. But wait, let's don't quit there. No, you can't. Let's continue here. We've got Samuel Aravelo Hernandez, a criminal illegal alien from Guatemala, charged with rape and lewd or lascivious acts with a minor. Now, think about that for just a second. Rape, and then on top of that, lewd and lascivious acts with a minor. This individual was walking the streets of Minneapolis with impunity just yesterday. Let's don't quit there. Let's keep on there. We've got Annabelle Gomez, a criminal illegal alien from Honduras, previously arrested for criminal sexual conduct and domestic assault. Other convictions include disorderly conduct and driving under the influence of liquor. Walking the streets as of yesterday. These are just three that I decided to print out. There's a whole stack of them. There's a whole stack of these. As a matter of fact, when we look over the past year at the 10,000 that have been arrested here in Minneapolis and Minnesota, that stack is enormous. These are the kinds of individuals this operation focuses on. Individuals who escalate situations and endanger others. Again, our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues, and Ma and Pa America. This is exactly why interior enforcement exists, to remove dangerous criminals from our communities, remove dangerous illegal alien criminals from our communities. It's also important, folks, to address a point that's often overlooked. Interior enforcement does not exist in isolation. It's not just about interior enforcement. It's a dichotomy here. It's interior enforcement and border enforcement. What happens in Minneapolis is directly connected at what happens at our borders. Interior enforcement and border enforcement, border security, are intricately connected. For years, federal law enforcement was placed in a defensive posture, especially over those past 4 years. Agents were overwhelmed, processing massive numbers of illegal aliens coming into the country, often with limited vetting, minimal accountability, and few consequences. I think that's proven right here just by those three that I held up there. Time and resources that should have been dedicated to public safety were diverted to administrative processing, and criminal organizations exploited that environment. Over the past year, under the leadership of our President, Donald J. Trump, and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, that dynamic has changed. It's changed radically. It's changed more than I've ever seen in my over 3 decades in law enforcement. Border enforcement has reached historic levels. I actually called back to my home sector in El Centro today. They had 1 apprehension over the past 24 hours. 1 along that 75-mile stretch of border in El Centro alone. Last week, there were several days where they had 0 border crossers in that sector. That's the same thing across all 20 Border Patrol sectors. Very few crossings. Illegal crossings have dropped to record lows. Catch and release has ended. Consequences have been restored. Again, consequences restored. Because the border is now secure, law enforcement can do its job more effectively. Agents are no longer tied up processing and releasing individuals into the interior, individuals that we just talked about. They can focus on who is coming into this country, and just as importantly, identifying and removing those who should not be here. And that shift matters. It allows for meaningful vetting, targeted enforcement, and a renewed focus on public safety over paperwork. Public safety over paperwork. Border security provides operational control, disrupts cartel pipelines, and prevents criminal flow from reaching American cities. It also allows law enforcement to focus again on removing individuals who slip through during years of failed policies and later committed serious crimes. What happens on the border doesn't stay on the border. Border enforcement and interior enforcement are 2 parts of the same mission. A secure border without interior enforcement leaves communities vulnerable. And interior enforcement without border control is unsustainable. Again, it's that dichotomous relationship. When both are aligned, the results are clear. Over the course of this administration, more than 10,000 criminal illegal aliens, as I said, have been apprehended here in Minneapolis over the past year. And in just the last 6 weeks alone, during this most current surge, 3,000 arrests of some of the most dangerous offenders operating in Minneapolis have occurred. 3,000. These are not technical violations, as I mentioned. These are individuals responsible for serious harm. Think about it for just a second, what the rape of a child actually entails.
Lord, how mercy, guys.
That's glossed over by the media oftentimes. What does that entail, and what's that like? Think about that. Murderers, rapists, gang members, they're not the people we want in our community. This is what public safety looks like. When the law is enforced consistently and professionally, we will continue enforcing the law. We will continue making arrests, and we will continue working to keep Minneapolis safe. The mission continues at the border and in the interior, because that effective enforcement depends on both occurring at the same time. Let's make America safe again. Honor first. Thank you.
Sir. Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Good afternoon. My name is Marcos Charles. As Greg introduced, I am the Executive Associate Director for ICE Enforcement Removal Operations. Thank you for joining us. We announced the current status of Operation Metro Surge. As you know, the Department of Homeland Security has arrested over 10,000 illegal aliens in Minnesota since President Trump took office. Over the weekend and through yesterday's holiday, ICE arrested 113 illegal aliens in Minnesota. Some of the criminal aliens that were arrested, whose photos you see beside me on the monitor, include an illegal alien gang member from Laos with convictions for homicide and robbery, an illegal alien from Laos who's been convicted for sodomizing a 12-year-old girl and sexual assault, an illegal alien from the Marshall Islands who has 24 criminal convictions, including assault, domestic abuse, and theft. There's an illegal alien from Honduras convicted of 3 DUIs who has also been arrested for kidnapping, robbery with a dangerous weapon, and possession of a stolen firearm. An illegal alien from South Africa convicted of violating a restraining order and arrested for domestic violence, assault, meth possession, and DUI. We are currently also looking for 2 sexual predators who are at large in or around St. Paul right now. Lu Mao Ah, a criminal illegal alien from Laos who is wanted for sexually assaulting a child, rape, kidnapping, and domestic violence. And Kong Ming Bang, a criminal illegal alien from Laos who is wanted for sexual assault, gang activity, and simple assault. If you have any information about these 2 criminal illegal aliens or any other criminal illegal aliens, please call the ICE tip line at 866-DHS-2-ICE or visit the website at ice.gov to submit a tip. Since President Trump took office 1 year ago today, the state of Minnesota has released nearly 500 criminal aliens who were in police or state custody rather than turning them over to ICE for removal proceedings. Many of these criminals already have a final order of removal, which means an immigration judge has determined that they have no legal basis to remain in the United States.
Thank you for that 5. Thank y'all for the gifts.
ICE currently has more than 1,360 immigration detainers
Thank you, Keith.
on illegal aliens in Minnesota jails and prisons, and we are calling on Governor Walz and Mayor Fry to turn these criminal illegal aliens directly over to ICE to keep Minnesota residents in our community safe. If local officials, including those in the Twin Cities, don't want ICE to arrest criminal aliens that are at large in their communities, the best solution is to turn them over to us in a safe, controlled setting like a jail or prison, instead of releasing them back onto the street to victimize our neighborhoods, where your children go to school, where your parents live, and where you worship, shop, and spend time with your loved ones. The holiday weekend's arrests reflect ICE's commitment to public safety and responsible enforcement. When criminal illegal aliens threaten the Twin Cities or any other city in America, we act decisively to remove them from the community in a controlled and lawful manner.
Thank you, RGT.
Our goal is simple. We're here to protect the American communities from people like the ones you see here on the monitor. Thank you.
For Commander Bovino, some of us in this room, this is A.C. Thompson with PBS Frontline, have followed you from city to city and documented your activities. How is what you're dealing with here different than what we've seen in other places?
Well, Mr. Thompson, thanks for the question. We've been in many cities, as you know. We've been in Los Angeles, Chicago, Charlotte, New Orleans, and now obviously Minneapolis. So what we've seen that's a bit different here is the organization of some of the groups. The groups are a bit better organized. They've got some excellent communications, and that coupled with a very poor response from the mayor and the governor, those two things coupled together make that a difficult operating environment at times. And the reason I say that is I just came from Operation Catahoula Crunch there in Louisiana, in which state and locals, including the governor, the mayors, the police chief, worked in close concert for us to do what my colleague here, Marcos Charles, said, and that's remove violent offenders, bad people and bad things from the streets. And in doing that, I had one act of violence against Border Patrol, one notable act of violence against Border Patrol in a month. Here, I've lost count. I've already lost count of how many. I believe we had a vehicle ramming today. We had one yesterday in which 2 illegal aliens decided that it would be a good idea to ram Border Patrol agents and then take off. And in doing so, they hit a civilian vehicle as well. Those 2 were apprehended. So it's that collusion and corruption between elected officials and these anarchists that are intent on creating violence for law enforcement. You know, I see a lot of this that mirrors what happened in 2020 right here in this city when they decided to try to burn the city down. It's that same type of rhetoric, that same type of support by those elected officials. So that's very different than what I just witnessed in Louisiana, the place that I just came from.
Senator Bovino, question for you. Lynn with Waterhawk. It's hard to get coffee in the Twin Cities without seeing signs of ICE can't enter, but everyone else can, or restaurants or supermarkets. Based on what you shared today, what is your message to businesses, to organizations that are obviously trying to push out ICE and your operation?
Sure. And this goes to anyone, not just those businesses and organizations. Don't fall victim. Don't fall victim to that heated rhetoric and those lies that are often spouted by, say, a Mayor Fry. Mayor Fry actually told his police force to fight federal agents in the city. And you should have even seen the look.
Which goes back to what we seen a while ago with the Minneapolis Police Department speaking out against ICE.
On O'Brien's face, Chief O'Brien, his eyebrows actually raised at that one. So don't fall victim to that. Our Border Patrol agents, our ICE officers, our parents, they're citizens. They enjoy the rule of law just like everyone else. So to deny them a cup of coffee or lawful commerce seems to be absolutely opposite of what we would expect in a lawful, orderly society. Did we like what happened with the church there a couple of days ago when individuals came in and disrupted almost violently a church?
Oh, yeah. Have y'all seen the church situation? Let me show y'all that real quick. Hold on. I want y'all to see what happened at this church where an ICE official was the pastor of the church, and protesters stormed the church and asked for his removal, guys. It's crazy. Check this out.
The Department of Justice says it has now launched an investigation after anti-ICE demonstrators stormed into a church in St. Paul, Minnesota during a service Sunday. Take a look here at your screen. This is viral video circulating all over social media from inside Minnesota's city's church. Those protesters say they did it because they believe one of the pastors is the acting director of ICE's St. Paul field office. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche telling our partners at Fox News Channel the DOJ is looking into it.
What you saw there was anti-Christian, anti-law enforcement rioters storming a church in this country, and that's a violation of law.
This is in Minnesota as well, guys.
The FACE Act was passed to stop this exact type of conduct. You are not allowed to stop people from worshiping, and you're not allowed to intimidate or impede them. And so the individuals that went in there and did that, and you could tell that they had a plan, you could tell that they had an agenda, and you cannot do that in this country, and we are investigating it.
And I do want to bring you this reaction coming in from President Trump. This is on Truth Social as he says, quote, just watched footage of the church raid in Minnesota by the agitators and insurrectionists. These people are professionals. No person acts the way they act. They are highly trained to scream, rant, and rave like lunatics in a certain manner, just like they're doing. They are troublemakers who should be thrown in jail or thrown out of the country. The first to go should be Walz, talking, of course, about the governor, and
then
fake
came the
sleazebag
subpoenas,
Ilhan
guys.
Omar, who is supposedly worth over $30 million, even though she's never had anything but a government job. Investigate these corrupt politicians and do it now, end quote. Now, there is a lot to discuss here as the investigation is active.
All right, we'll get right back to that. Let's let him finish speaking, though. I just wanted y'all to
Absolutely
see
not
that.
same thing. We should treat each other with respect, dignity, and that is why we are here in this city as we take those violent criminals off the streets. That's respect and dignity.
This is for you as well, Commander Padilla. At a press conference today, we heard from several local police chiefs who said that they support ICE, but that certain ICE tactics are...
He's responding to what we seen with the police chiefs in Minnesota. Now
I would say that those tactics are born of necessity. What we do is legal, ethical, and moral. Everything we do every day is legal, ethical, moral, well-grounded in law. So I would impugn upon those police chiefs and anyone else, elected representatives, and you have to remember, many of these police chiefs do work for the Mayor Fries of the world, that turn over those illegal aliens, those criminal illegal aliens. You know, let me hold these up again, so it's just so we don't forget this, because it seems like it always gets forgotten. Rape, lewd and lascivious acts against a child. So Mayor Fry is having police chiefs worry about tactics while we're after these type of people. I think that they're asking the wrong questions and their priorities are misplaced. Let's work. Wait, no, I'm not done yet. Let's work together. And we've said this from the very beginning. We want to work together with local police chiefs and the rank and file. And believe it or not, folks, we work very well together with the rank and file we have in every single city we've been to, whether that's Los Angeles, Chicago. A lot of rank and file gave us a lot of good information on a lot of good criminals, or a lot of bad criminals there in Chicago. And then we proved it again in New Orleans. Let's work together to take individuals like this off the street. Had we worked together from the very beginning, perhaps we wouldn't be in the city by the thousands conducting operations that those police chiefs, those mayors, and those elected representatives refuse to partake in.
If I could just follow up though real quick, if I don't think the argument from a lot of people, I think it'd be hard pressed to find anyone who doesn't want criminals who are alleged to do these things out of these communities. I mean, no one wants that. I think where a lot of the criticism comes in is within the tactics that you see ICE and others engaging in, that it's ordinary citizens who are not sex offenders or rapists getting swept up in. So what do you say to that?
Sure. Where you're talking about these ordinary citizens, Ma and Pa America, that get swept up in what I see. I'm out on the streets just as Marcos Charles here is. We're on the streets with our troops almost every day. And what we see when folks get swept up, as you say, oftentimes it's those agitators, those rioters, and now I call them anarchists, that actually cause Ma and Pa America to sometimes be near, at, or involved in a very tense situation when they shouldn't even be. There's no need for that violence that we see against law enforcement. And again, it seems as the only people that are really dialing down that rhetoric is the federal law enforcement entities that just want to conduct legal, ethical, and lawful law enforcement missions in this city to take out those violent criminals, bad people, and bad things. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat it?
What is the current status of the officer that was involved in the deadly shooting? Was he on administrative leave? And then the second question is, the local police today were accusing both ICE and Border Patrol of having a small group of people within the ranks that are causing these issues. What's your response to that? I don't know if you can answer that one. They're saying that it's isolated to a small group of agents that are causing issues.
So the officer that was involved in the shooting last week, or 2 weeks ago now, He's recovering. He's at home, recovering.
Is he on administrative leave or is he still involved in the operation?
Right now he's at home recovering. I'll leave it at that.
And as far as the response to local police saying that it's isolated to a small group of your agents or officers that are causing issues?
So our officers that are out there, CBP, Border Patrol, DOJ partners that are out there, ICE, ERO, HSI, everybody that's out there is a professional. They're out there doing their job. They're everyday people doing a very hard job trying to enforce the immigration laws in an environment where local and state politicians have been spreading rhetoric that dehumanizes these officers and agents.
Commander Bravino, working toward the Daily Caller. Earlier today, Brooklyn Park police chief said that his department is receiving endless of calls from American citizens saying that their civil rights are being violated by federal agents. And the police chief also went on to say that some of his off-duty officers are also being asked for their immigration status, and one officer was boxing. That's according to the police chief. I just wanted if you had a response for the Brooklyn Park police chief.
Sure. Again, our Border Patrol agents, ICE officers, and those allied federal law enforcement agencies are out there conducting Title VIII immigration, the Title VIII immigration mission. And I'll tell you, when you have a mayor and a police chief, O'Hara, that say call 911 when ICE or Border Patrol's in the neighborhood, and then they wonder why the 911 system is overwhelmed with superfluous calls with superfluous calls for assistance when that is not true. So we're going to continue to be out in the community, and we're going to continue to conduct that mission, that legal, lawful Title VIII mission. And again, I've been out with my Border Patrol agents. Marcos is out constantly with his troops, and what I see out there is a very professional, prudent, and thoughtful law enforcement action. And if somebody needs to use the 911 system, then do it. But let's don't encourage anarchists to utilize a 911 system.
What he calls them, guys.
That hurts other Americans that may need to use that system. A law enforcement professional should know that. Thank you.
You don't want to answer no more questions.
Sir, why don't you answer that question?
Hey, I telling it right up out of there, guys. Say, yeah, it's time to go. It's time to
as you
go.
see there, some reporters at the last minute still trying to shout some questions towards those DHS agents speaking there on immigration. And on the heel of the death of Renee Good, she 2 weeks ago, and I'll include Governor Tim Walz's office, Attorney General Keith Ellison's office, the Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry's office, and St. Paul Mayor's office as well. And so we'll continue to keep you updated on the very latest, but this is the statement we have there from AG Ellison, saying less than 2 weeks ago, federal agents shot and killed a Minnesotan in broad daylight. Now, instead of seriously investigating the killing of Renee Good, Trump is weaponizing the justice system against any leader who dares to stand up to him. Today, my office has received a criminal grand jury subpoena from the Department of Justice. It is a subpoena for records and documents related to my office's work with respect to federal immigration enforcement, not for me personally. Everything about this is highly irregular, especially the fact that this comes shortly after my office sued the Trump administration to challenge their illegal actions within Minnesota. Let's be clear about why this is happening. Donald Trump is coming after the people of Minnesota, and I'm standing in his way. I will not be intimidated, and I will not stop working to protect Minnesotans from Trump's campaign of retaliation and revenge. And so once again, that's the very latest, as we just heard there from those DHS immigration enforcement agents speaking on some of those operations that are happening in Minneapolis. I want to make sure we brought that to you here on Live Now from Fox. We are in a new hour. I want to thank my colleague Stephanie Quinu, who was with you for the last from folks.
So hold on. So while ago I was showing y'all about that church, right? You know, this ties into that. Let's go back to where I was showing y'all about the church, all right, and what Trump said right here.
Of course, reaction pouring in from all over the area. We do have Kirk Graham, the executive pastor at River Valley Church over in Minneapolis, just miles away from this, joining us to discuss all of it. Pastor, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Absolutely. I think this is the pastor of that church, guys.
First off, I do want to ask you
who they felt like was a person who works with ICE, guys. And that's why they stormed the church. But let's hear what the pastor of the church that was stormed by the protesters has to say about all this.
Action here. As an executive pastor, you see this video for the first time. Tell me what's going through your mind.
Yeah, it really is pretty intense and horrifying. It's a shameful attack on faith.
Well, he's not the one that was there. He's a pastor from Minnesota.
And go in the middle of a worship service to disrupt. And so I do believe it's unjust. It's un-American. It should never happen. This is America. We've got the freedom of religion and, yes, freedom of speech. So if you stay outside in protest, you can do that. But you enter a sacred space.
They went in the church, guys.
Desecrate it like this, interrupting a worship service. We can't have it in this country. And so this is an opportunity to be bold as Christ followers, to say we are going to worship without fear. And honestly, we're just trusting that the Department of Justice will move forward these investigations and bring accountability here, because if that doesn't happen, this could have a multiplication effect across the nation and in churches, and we cannot have that in this country.
Have you heard from church members with your church who are maybe concerned about this? And if so, what are you telling them?
Yeah, great question. There is a lot of concern pastoring right now in the city of Minneapolis with the unrest that's happening. Is you're threading a needle. We pray in all directions, we care in all directions, but what we teach and preach is that as a Christ follower, we believe that Jesus is alive and that He is our protection. And so, there's a missionary that we support that serves in dangerous places around the world, the 42% of the world that has never had an adequate gospel witness. He says a Christ follower is invincible until God says you're not. And so, to anybody right now battling fear, what if protesters show up, or even immigrants that we pray for in our church that are battling fear right now, we say you do not have to be afraid because you are a Christ follower. So we do have security teams. We have trained and background checked security teams to keep our children safe and to keep us safe as we worship. We do hire law enforcement, and we're grateful for law enforcement that are at all 11 of our locations around the Twin Cities to help keep our congregation members safe. But our message is the same message that we read in the Bible. Do not be afraid.
All right. So that was a little bit about, what went on with the church. Okay, which leads us back to where we were just at, guys. Because we're not done with the church yet. Okay, so as of today, a lot of the protesters did interviews, right? The people who basically stormed the church. And they are calling for the pastor of that church, who is said to be an ICE agent, to step down as pastor of the church. And that leads us here.
Speaking out about that, let's listen in.
On the streets of St. Paul, Minneapolis, and surrounding suburbs, and including outstate Minnesota, where they have literally kicked in people's doors. They have dragged people out of their homes. As a matter of fact, on Sunday, while we were in City's church, one of the most egregious things that they did was brought out a Hmong elder wearing a robe and some pajama shorts, it looked like, and they wouldn't even let the man put on full clothing, knowing that we're dealing with freezing cold temperatures here in Minnesota. And they did the same to a Liberian immigrant by the name of Garrison in North Minneapolis, where they kicked in the man's door and came in with big guns and took him out. And then NPR reported that when he got to the detention facility, they took trophy photos with him, like he was a slave or an animal that they caught out in the wild. And he wasn't the only one that they did that to. So somebody tell me.
Remember the video in the beginning that I showed y'all of the dude being brought outside in his boxers, and then he did an interview? That's who she's talking about right now.
it acceptable for David Easterwood to be a pastor when he is condoning this kind of conduct? And not just condoning it through his
She's talking
silence
about the pastor
when
of
it
that
comes
church.
to addressing it publicly with our community, but the fact that he was referenced in the lawsuit that was filed by the ACLU in December on behalf of 6 residents calling out the retaliatory and abusive tactics by ICE. And you know what David said in that lawsuit? There's no evidence that this is going on. It's the protesters and their aggression that's at fault. Well, think about what Rebecca Good said, the wife of Renee Good. They had guns, we had whistles. So you are talking about nonviolent, peaceful protesters with whistles, rocks, ice, and occasionally fireworks being compared to these thugs coming into our community with high-powered assault weapons, who have flashbang grenades, who have tear gas and green gas, being able to unleash these military-grade weapons upon our community. And instead of these issues being addressed, what do we get from the federal government? Threats of investigating those of us who were involved in a peaceful demonstration at City's Church. The same federal government that made up lies after the brutal murder of mother and wife Renee Good, falsely claiming that she was a domestic terrorist, falsely claiming that she tried to run over ICE agent Jonathan Ross. How dare they? And then putting out a statement that they're not going to investigate him on top of all of that. And what did the Vice President of the United States say, who is also a lawyer?
J.D. Vance.
That this man has total immunity, which is false under the law. So these people need to be called out and they need to be held accountable for continuing to assault the very people who are standing up for freedom, justice, and equality. This does not just affect immigrants. It's bad enough that it affects immigrants, but it also affects American citizens. And it doesn't matter whether they are adults or whether they are children. Think about the day that Renee Good was killed. That same day, ICE officers, federal officers, went to Roosevelt High School and they assaulted young people, pepper sprayed them and physically assaulted them. And then they tackled one of their staff members in front of these kids. Think about the family of 8 that was driving in North Minneapolis on the day that the Venezuelan national was shot in the leg. On that day, as that family was driving, so a mother, a father, and 6 children, ICE agents unleashed military-grade munitions on that family's vehicle, causing a flashbang grenade to go under their car and tear gas to go into their car. 2 of their children had asthma and could not breathe. But even worse, a 6-month-old baby lost consciousness during that attack. A 6-month-old baby, an innocent family, because of the lawlessness and the recklessness by ICE. Now think about that. And then you think about the board of City's Church. Instead of them saying, you know what?
Hey guys, let's take time to double tap that screen. Get the likes up. If you're on a mobile device, double tap that screen. Especially if you in my chat with this nonsense, you better most definitely hit that like button before I deport you out of here faster than ICE. Deport immigrants. Let's double tap that screen. You know what I'm saying? If you're on a mobile device, or click those 3 dots and hit the thumbs up. Those are both ways to hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribing to the channel if you are new. Yeah, man. Make sure y'all get them likes up.
We made a mistake. David Easterwood should not have been allowed to continue to remain as a pastor on our roster at this church.
Thank you, Rita.
In light of all of the abuse and harm being levied by ICE, if they were true to the gospel that I just referenced. But instead, what did they do? Issue a statement calling protesters lawless. That's the kind of...
Stephanie, I'm not against deportation. Deport the violent criminals. And as you can see, I most definitely I deport you up out of here. You know what I'm saying? I'm with the deportation on my channel. I get you right up out of here. Mass deportation situation in effect for trolls who ain't hitting the like button. I deport you right up out of here. You can get deported the quickest. Say I get you gone.
Gaslighting that we're dealing with here. It's unconscionable and it's unacceptable while human lives are at stake. So today, we are calling for the resignation of so-called Pastor David Easterwood from City's Church. We are asking City's Church to operate in truth and integrity and the true meaning of the gospel, and to recognize that David Easterwood's dual role as a pastor and as the director of the ICE office is a most definite conflict of interest, and it cannot stand. Thank you. So with that, I am calling up next Monique Cullors-Doty, who is the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Minnesota and one of the co-organizers of the demonstration that we held at City's Church on Sunday. Let's welcome Monique.
Let's deport Luke. Yeah, we'll holler at you, Luke. Congratulations. You just got deported. Put the rockets in the chat. Let them know we got more rockets than Elon Musk, and deport people faster than Trump. Yeah, you go to talking crazy to me in my chat, you will be deported.
Thank you. Aside from being co-founder of Black Lives Matter Minnesota, I'm an ordained deacon. And one of the roles of the deacon in the church is for correction. When I learned of David Easterwood's role in the church, in City Church, it was obvious that there was a need for correction.
Hey, pretty problem.
When we went to that church in peace, we did not storm City Church, as it's been reported in Fox News. We did not descend from helicopters. We did not have military gear. We walked in peacefully. This was not January 6th. This was January 16th. This was not an insurrection. This was a correction. Because you cannot stand in four walls and call yourself a church if you are not truly preaching, teaching, living, and walking the true gospel. It is an abomination for someone to put the title of reverend, which means reverence for God, before his name, and act as a field director for ICE. There is nothing about the ICE operations that we have seen here firsthand in Minnesota that aligns itself with the gospel of Jesus Christ. There is not a teaching in the Bible that supports what is happening with the immigrant community here, what is happening with peaceful protesters, what is happening for those who are standing up for the rights of others, for those who are putting their bodies on the line, for those who have taken wrongful arrests. And
y'all hell in this chat. Somebody just said, I cannot support or listen to somebody whose eyes don't go in the same direction. Y'all tripping, man. What in the world?
Wrongful detentions. There is nothing in the Bible that supports what ICE is doing. And it is absolutely hypocritical for David Easterwood to be in the role as a director, a field director for ICE in Minnesota, and stand in the pulpit and proclaim the gospel. It is sinful at best. And for the church to continue to support that is problematic as well. I don't know what Bible they are reading. I don't know what pages they decided to skip, but it's not hard to find what Jesus said. You can find a Bible where Jesus' words are highlighted in red if you don't care to read the entire book. But it does not condone what ICE is doing. And I denounce David Easterwood as a minister of the gospel. I denounce him as a legitimate vessel of God. And I denounce
David Easterland, I think that's what said his name was. Congratulations, sir. You have got denounced.
Him as someone who is able to bring people to the cross in truth in integrity and in honesty. I don't know if he's assigned his field agents when they kick in someone's door to hand them a tract to tell them about Jesus. Is that what he's doing? I don't know. But what I can see right now is that there is a church of people that are being led astray. From the response when we were in the church, there was no surprise about David Easterwood's role. As a matter of fact, they tried to deny it. They tried to deny it. It's very clear on the website that he is a pastor at that church. And when I say they were not surprised, it leads me to believe that there needs to be a further investigation into the other pastors of the church and how many other members of the church are actually ICE agents. Because birds of a feather flock together. That people who are walking in the fruit of the Spirit, who are walking in discernment, would know and understand and recognize the spirit of evil that has to be operating within that body. There is no way that someone who is grounded in the Word is going to just sit by and just sit and enjoy a song that's played over the speaker, as we heard during the service, and not question, not pause to question, why were these protesters here peacefully, hands up, don't shoot, chanting justice for Renee Good, chanting justice for our immigrant community, chanting in the name of Jesus, because it is what was righteous. And the pushback that we are getting is absolutely ridiculous. For people who are saying, oh, they shouldn't protest in the church, what do they think Jesus did when he turned over the tables in the church? Gentle words and gentle means are for gentle people. There is nothing gentle about ICE, and there is nothing gentle about an ICE field director. So we came and we did what was necessary, and hopefully this opens up a greater conversation for the Southern Baptist Convention, which has already been debating and struggling.
Do y'all agree with what they're saying? You know, basically with the pastor stepping down if he's an ICE agent, guys. She says there's nothing godly about what ICE is doing, and that this pastor shouldn't be in the church if he supports ICE. What do y'all think?
With immigration in its stance, which is crazy in and of itself, that they would choose half to ignore the Bible and the other half to call for stronger immigration laws. Well, let's be clear. Let's imagine, how hard was it to come through Ellis Island for their ancestors? Not hard. So I say this, standing in solidarity with my other organizers and the other protesters that showed up with us.
Hey, Libra.
We stood on the side of what was right. We stood up for our immigrant community, and that's what we all need to do. So when we see other people wrongfully under attack, no one should just sit by idly. Come out of the comfort of your home. Come out in the streets. Find your place and see what you can do to organize, because it's going to get worse before it gets better. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. So as you can see, 2 fake leaders were responsible for co-organizing the demonstration that took place on Sunday. And I have to say that I'm really disappointed overall in our faith community. We have seen maybe a handful of pastors in this community, including so-called progressive ones, speaking out against this, but more need to use their voices, especially because of the fact that the Trump administration rolled back protections for houses of worship. That is something that the media has completely missed. They sent out guidance saying that ICE agents can enter houses of worship with a warrant. ICE agents have also arrested people in the parking lots of churches, waiting around for people to come out, which has had an impact on our immigrant community, because many of those churches have fewer people attending because they are afraid. So if the Trump administration cared about what happened inside of a church, then he would have strengthened protections for churches in the midst of these ICE raids instead of weakening those protections. But we need our faith leaders to speak out. We see you at Target, but we need to see you on the front lines of this fight as well, calling out accountability for the federal government for their lies and manipulations and their abuse. Next, we will hear from Trahern Cruz, who is the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Minnesota and was also one of the protesters at last Sunday's demonstration. Let's welcome Trahern.
Jesus said, love thy neighbor, but the actions from ICE are very hateful right now. And for a pastor to be the director of a hateful organization in our community and having a church in a very diverse community, the city of St. Paul is one of the diverse communities in the country. And so for a pastor to be conducting ICE raids in a diverse community is very, very, very hypocritical to us. We came in, and the organizers came in saying, hands up, don't shoot. Hands up, don't shoot. But when Dylan Roof was in a church with black people, he prayed for them, and then he shot them and killed them. During the 60s, we know about the Birmingham era, where black churches continued to be bombed and bombed. We just came in for discussion, a discussion about humanity. So there's a very different ideal of how we were approaching churches and how white supremacists have been approaching churches historically. Lastly, our civil rights protections, racism is costing the United States trillions and trillions of dollars. And civil rights were put into place to address so that black people can be treated civilly. And so for Donald Trump, the President Trump, to reverse that is harmful not only to black people, but harmful to America and also harmful to the American economy. You see the job numbers are real low. You have historic job numbers, and a lot of that is coming from 300,000 black women have been fired since the Trump administration has came into office. And so instead of using the Department of Justice to investigate peaceful protesters, we think the Department of Justice should get back to investigating police brutality and police murders in our community. The Department of Justice should continue to investigate real housing discrimination against black people and other people of color.
All right, as you see, they're listening in to those community leaders there. They're speaking out on the ICE protesters who disrupted the church service and also just in general, some of the demonstrations that we've seen there throughout the week in Minneapolis. And so we wanted to make sure we were able to bring that to you here on Live Now from Fox. Ultimately, we do know that the Department of Justice did say on Sunday that they are now investigating that group of protesters in Minnesota who disrupted that church service where an immigration and customs enforcement officer apparently serves as a pastor. And so those protesters allege that one of the church's pastors, as they've named him there, David Easterwood, also leads the local ICE field office overseeing the operations that have been involving some of those arrests happening in the city. And so we'll continue to keep our eyes on this. And
she went to Oslo, how she got there, and
now, have you reviewed the criminal complaint in this case?
All right, so when it comes to this situation that's going on, basically in Minnesota, guys, hold on, let me see something.
All of the electricity that they're creating for themselves. I said to jobs where people are sitting around doing nothing and they get a lot of money by the government.
This was Trump earlier.
But that's what the Democrats do. They show natural gas to Asia, Greenland, but it's a
as he looks to take over
Greenland is the ultimate.
Speaking there at the World.
All right, so we ain't gonna even worry about it. But Trump most definitely spoke on this entire situation when it comes to. Hold on, matter of fact, let's go here. We heard the protesters talking about before I wrap it up. We heard the protesters basically saying that this guy should be fired when it comes to his involvement, with ICE and being a person of the church. Here go situation
to
one more
protesters
time.
invading a worship space, it's the slippery slope that could multiply into churches across our country. And I'm grateful for President Trump's comments on what happened. And I'm grateful for Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice that is, again, moving swiftly. But we just cannot have this in America. And I think it's a dangerous place to be, a person coming into the house of God to separate the children of God who come to worship. God will not have that. And so it's not just un-American, but you're coming against what we believe, the living God.
When people see that video, again, it's going viral. It's been shared all over social media outlets all over playing it as well here. And you can see everything kind of play out. What do you hope that people will take away from that about the faith community as a whole?
Yeah, I really hope that this is a moment to be a light in the dark. There's a lot of people in our congregation and in the Twin Cities that are talking, should we leave Minnesota? Should we get out of this state because of the uncomfortability? And our lead pastor, Pastor Rob Ketterling, he planted the church 30 years ago. He has always said, we are on mission. We are called to be a light in the dark. It's Jesus's most famous sermon in Matthew chapter 5, where he says the church is like a city.
I most definitely try a lot of channels, my guy. You just caught me on the day where I'm on a Pacific topic that I'm on, when it comes to Minnesota, the subpoenas, the things that took place in the church, Pam Bundy and them going to Minnesota, but I most definitely got a wide variety, my guy.
Set on a hill, that we are the light. And a lot of people think that light and dark spiritually are equal forces, and biblically we don't believe that. We believe the light of Jesus Christ is infinitely stronger than the darkness, and so we will stand strong again on the word of God, and just really praying that the Bible believing churches across the Twin Cities would show up strong. Again, we stand with Cities Church, and I thought Pastor Jonathan did a great job in a very difficult intense moment to respond like Jesus would respond. And so we're praying that Cities Church is full of peacemakers this weekend, full of worshipers this weekend, just like at River Valley Church.
Pastor, thank you so much for joining us here to share your thoughts, of course, and your reaction to all of this. Is there anything we missed that you want to make sure that we do kind of mention here before I let you go?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. I will say, just with everything that's happening, we have law enforcement that attend our church in plain clothes and worship Jesus. We also have immigrants that are battling fear. Is it okay to show up? And the nervousness, and depending on the media that they're digesting, what's true, what's not true. And so we have chosen, and our lead pastor, again, Pastor Rob, has chosen to lead this way, that we are going to pray for the immigrant. We're going to pray for law enforcement. And we're going to believe that God is sovereign over the unrest that's happening in Minneapolis, and that light will prevail.
All right, Pastor Kirk Graham, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here and discuss all of this. We definitely appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Josh.
And of course, as I mentioned,
crazy,
the
y'all.
DOJ investigation is underway. Attorney General Pam Bondi posting this on social media.
Pam Bondi.
I just spoke to the pastor in Minnesota whose church was targeted. Attacks against law enforcement and the intimidation of Christians are being met with the full force of federal law. If state leaders refuse to act responsibly to prevent lawlessness, this Department of Justice will remain mobilized to prosecute federal crimes and ensure that the rule of law prevails. Again, reaction coming in from all over, including White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, who says President Trump will not tolerate the intimidation and harassment of Christians in their sacred places of worship. The Department of Justice has launched a full investigation into the despicable incident that took place earlier today at a church in Minnesota.
Jim, how you gonna tell me this ain't what happened?
On Sunday,
Man, chill out,
and it
before I
could
put
be
you-
a
before I
potential
deport you
that we
off
do
my
get a
channel.
reaction, more of it coming later today at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, when we do have the White House press briefing with Leavitt and potentially other people as well. We're going to bring that to you in full. Now, Fox News posting this as well, saying rapper Nicki Minaj shares a photo online of what appears to be a father holding his crying son as anti-ICE agitators stormed a Minnesota church during Sunday service. She captioned the image, which has been getting a lot of attention online. The world is watching. The Star also posted about Don Lemon, a former CNN anchor who chronicled the church demonstration on social media. Quote, "I want that thug in jail. He would never do that to any other religion. Lock him up." End quote. Again, that is a post from Fox News quoting Nicki Minaj.
All right, guys. So I most definitely brought y'all the situation with what was going on with the church. You know, the subpoenas of a lot of them sending out subpoenas for a lot of the top officials in Minnesota, basically saying they're not doing everything in their power, you know, to assist ICE, you know, and to resolve this conflict between, I guess, protesters and ICE agents, guys. So they subpoenaed 5 leaders over there. That's crazy. Let's get savage. There's nothing fake about them, what they're telling us, my God. What are you talking about? This is most definitely taking place in Minnesota. If you don't believe that this is actually happening in Minnesota, go check out my live streams where I cover the protests as they're going on from people on the scene in Minnesota where all of it is happening at. What in the entire world is going on? Y'all don't believe nothing. Y'all, everything fake. If I show CNN, that's fake. If I show Fox, that's fake. If I show MSNBC, that's fake. If I show whatever I show, it's always fake. Let y'all tell it. Y'all just don't believe nothing. That is crazy. It don't matter what news station it is, it's fake. News Nation, fake. Everybody fake. Well, I guess y'all are the only one with the real info. Maybe y'all should start y'all a news channel and basically tell the real news, you know, since all the rest of the news is fake. But anyway, I let y'all hear what Trump had to say about this whole situation. I most definitely reported on Pam Bundy and her team being basically in Minnesota and how out of hand all of this has gotten. And with that being said, I covered everything in my title. So if you have not hit that like button, man, double tap the screen. That's one way to hit the like button. Or you can click the 3 dots in the right-hand corner. Hit that thumbs up. That's another way to hit the like button. And most definitely subscribe to the channel, man. We on the road to 60K. We need all the subscribers we can get. So subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to my new subscribers as well as my old subscribers. Shout out to all of my members because memberships are available on this channel. If you like this brand of entertainment, man, you can simply go to my homepage, click join. It'll give you instructions on how to get you a membership and become a member of the Sidewalk Gang, man. You know what I'm saying? And most definitely support everything news. Shout out to my moderators for keeping this chat running smooth. You know, I know it get crazy down there sometime. I don't know what I'd do without y'all. You know what I'm saying? So I most definitely appreciate y'all as well. And with that being said, Sidewalk Gang, checking out. Man, y'all be safe out there. I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm gone, man. See y'all later.